Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another breakfast with Blaha. And today, I'm having fat-free Greek yogurt and almond butter, keeping it a little simple. And let's talk about being dogmatic about exercises. Something I've had to come to terms with myself, with clients, things like that. I've gone through periods of time where I thought, look, this is a bad exercise, this is a useless exercise, and realistically, if we're going to look at the things that tend to hurt you the most, highest risk of injury, it's probably going to be more single joint exercises because of the way they load tendons and joints in a way that isn't always a natural movement pattern, and so it can accrue more inflammation over time if you're not careful. All right, if you're not careful. Some of that can be combated by simply finding the right machine or cable sometimes that will let you do those without issues either. So just something to think about. But when it comes to exercises that I've seen people have problems with, or I've personally had some issues with here or there, of instead of me being objective, a lot of times I've had that habit to say, well, I don't know that I like this exercise, which is a normal human response. But when it's a safe exercise that tens of thousands of people do and put up enormous lifts on for years and years and never get hurt, we can't have that mindset, can we? Right? Just like me, I mean, people get hurt squatting and deadlifting. You don't see me promoting them as dangerous exercises. So I can give you a few examples. Pull-ups, chin-ups, overhead pressing. Those have been on at different points. But when you look at them realistically, anytime I've had issues with them, it's either been largely an overuse, right? Overuse, or oftentimes some muscle imbalances and inflammation combined with execution that needed to be different. For example, I never in my life had any problems with overhead pressing with a false grip. Ever. Even doing behind the neck push presses and things. You guys never heard me have issues. Till I started listening to Starting Strength. And I forgot that that's where I got that with the thumb over grip and gripping it super tight that way. I got that from them and changed in the middle of while being on YouTube, and then occasionally have problems with the overhead press. And we know I don't have the best overhead mobility. It seems to be my structure. I've done everything I can to work on it. But that's when I run into problems. It's one reason I always did so well and never had inflammation with that axle bar. And then it's had me go through phases where I'm like, well, we don't even need overhead pressing. You can benefit a lot from the overhead press. I'm not saying it's mandatory. You can certainly be strong and jacked, have an elite bench, everything else without doing it. It still brings a lot to the table. It's a valuable tool. Valuable tool. Pull-ups, chin-ups. And I've always said I don't like sometimes the injury risk and the overuse problems and stuff because I had an issue with it, while still admitting they were arguably one of the best upper bodybuilders you could possibly do. All right, pull-ups and chin-ups in general, it is very, very difficult to compete with them with other exercises on your lats and your biceps. All right, it's very difficult. But when did I have issues? Well, again, combined with some certain things going on with my shoulders, when I did silly stuff like I had listened to Jamie Lewis and said, well, if he can do it, I can do it. Or I built it to where I was doing 100 chin-ups every day. It just led to overuse. And it caused me a lot of problems. It made me reoccurringly have a problem. But what was going on? Because again, I already have some mobility issues. I had problems with my subacromial spacing, which I found dead hangs work wonders for fixing. So I cured my own shoulder impingement from all of that, cured it myself, rehabbed it, and lo and behold, when I realize I can do them correctly as long as I'm careful with certain things and I don't have overuse, meaning we don't try to train all the time. You can do a ton of volume inside a single training session, but here's largely what I'm finding. Overuse is a frequency and a volume thing, and a rotating movement thing. In other words, yeah, if you do chins every day, it's a problem. You try to do chins 4 days a week, it may be a problem. So how many people out there go on ultra high specificity bench programs and they start benching 4 days a week, even though they could have done the same amount of workload in 2 days, and before long they have bad shoulders, they have all these problems. Okay, limit these things to 2 days a week. Only lift 4 days a week. Right? It's all that's necessary. If you're doing other stuff, it better be cardio and abs and things on your other days. But the overuse end. Finding ways to do these exercises that are very good exercises that do not cause you problems. And what have I found again with those movements? Rotate the grips. Also, don't try to push my head forward at the bottom, right? Don't try to push my head through the window. Keep my chest and my chin up all the way through, top to bottom. None of this letting the head come forward so that I can try to stretch at the bottom. Don't do that. For me personally. Again, then I find I don't have problems. As long as I work on squeezing the bar super tight, keeping my chest and chin up, all the way through the range of motion, rotating grips, because I have a bunch of different grips now. I can do them. I can do them fine. They're phenomenal. And as far as the balance of the upper back, well, you could get away with less rowing and more pull-ups and chin-ups if you're doing speed pulls, if you're doing overhead pressing. Do you guys see where we're going with some of this? If we're worried about certain muscle balance issues, these can be corrected by doing some of these other exercises. And what ends up happening, I find, is that when you take a major movement pattern out, again, it could be vertical pulls instead of horizontal pulls. It could be taking your overhead pressing out, right? Certain muscle imbalances develop easier. And I don't mean that, people say, well, you take a singles weight. Well, that's different. That doesn't cause muscle imbalance. We basically have 6 basic movement patterns, right? 6 basic movement patterns. But when we start taking patterns out, then certain other patterns can start to be problematic for us. So we really can't afford to be dogmatic. We really can't if we want to maximize our development. If we want to be strong at every angle, I talk about being strong with any barbell or any lift we touch. Well, that needs to include a full movement pattern. If you can't walk over and pull up or row, either one, an enormous amount of weight, you're not really that strong, are you? Right? We need to be strong at everything. We need to be strong at everything. We need to be strong at every angle. And that means we need to be developed at every angle. And we can't be dogmatic about these things. And I'm not saying there aren't some exercises that cause problems. But what I'm saying is when we have problems from exercises, it's usually an incorrect programming of that exercise or an incorrect execution of that exercise or a major muscle imbalance. But it's usually a combination somewhere of any of those 3. All right, it's usually a blend of those. That's when we have problems. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.